Ben, hi.
Hi, Chris. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Excellent. Hope you've had a good morning.
Great morning, thank you. Always nice to be here.
Excellent. It'd be really great just to get a sense from you of what your impressions of Canford have been first up.
I mean, look, I suppose the immediate obvious thing with Canford is going to be it's an extraordinary setting, it's an extraordinary place, and that is wonderful and a real blessing. But I've always really felt schools are people, not buildings, and actually, what impresses me therefore is the people that you meet and the positivity that comes through, the sense of how much they love the school at every level. The pupils, the teaching staff, the catering team, everybody I meet is so proud to be a part of Canford, and that's always a really exciting experience, I think. And so that community piece, is also what's played through so strongly. That real sense that people know each other, care about each other, and that's really what drives the success of the place. And I guess that's the third thing is, the success of the place is significant and again, sort of writ large. There's a culture and a community, and hugely to your credit and the leadership team, that is aspirational. It is about doing things to the very best standard that they can be done, whether that's in the classroom or on the sports pitch or on the stage. There's a real sense that actually achieving the very best is what Canfordians are aiming to do, and what all of the staff team are here to help them to achieve. And that's just a very exciting place.
Yeah, I think I'd agree totally with that, and I think that strong sense of the place is amazing, but it is absolutely the people that are its beating heart, isn't it? It's the lifeblood. So I think we're totally in tune on that one. Obviously, and thank you very much for those kind words about where we are now. I guess be interesting to get a sense of what your vision is for the future, where you see Canford going.
I mean, look, I think in lots of ways it's far too early to be, making any sort of sense of where next, except to say, I don't think that it's a job of a head to turn up and change a place. I think it's a job of a head to understand a place and try to make it more so in all of the things that it does well. So, I'd be very keen to be fostering, encouraging all the things that we've just been talking about, and really trying to help continue to shape that culture of excellence, that sense of community. Those things are really important at Canford. Equally, there are some things that are very much already in train. The sixth form college is a really exciting development, the beginnings of a new era for Canford, a response to, I think, what's happening in the market, where more and more actually people are saying, okay, what's the leap from school to university, and how do we make that a more gradual path? How do we make sure that actually children feel really prepared for that? And I spent a little bit of time this morning with Julia Bird, and she's so kind of fired up about what she can achieve there. And I met a number of sixth formers last week who are also really excited about what that development means. And again, it's the people, not the building. The building's super, don't get me wrong, but the structures that are going around it and the way that we're thinking about and talking about how we prepare children for the next stage is really exciting. So I think that's definitely something that's really worth exploring. I think the other thing that struck me about Canfordians is that it's not just that they achieve well in all the sort of baubles that go with education. There's an emotional intelligence that I think is really exciting, and something that I'm really interested in understanding better and looking at exploring and seeing how we can do more to build that sense of understanding themselves, to build that resilience in facing down things that are challenging. Because the world of tomorrow is going to be one. You and I are probably both of a generation in which our parents, perhaps had one employer. We've had multiple employers in one career. This generation of children will have multiple employers and multiple careers. And lots of that is going to be about how they can adapt and adjust, how much they understand themselves. And I think really looking at how we support and develop something that's clearly already happening a great deal at Canford is exciting. And ultimately, yes, that lands in the futures team in the sixth form college. But all the way through, how we understand ourselves, how we process our understanding of ourselves through our teenage years is complex. It's something that we are understanding more and more all the time, and something that I'm really excited about exploring.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with that sense of continuity and change, isn't it? I mean, we are, and it's good to have those constants, and particularly where you're perhaps sort of anchored on certain sort of values and things that guide you, pegs, if you like, to guide you through life. But obviously, everything is changing so rapidly around us that we need to ensure that that those young people have got the right things in the bag and the confidence to use them in different ways at different times. So I think that's spot on. What do you think you're most looking forward to about coming to Canford?
Well, I love. I love boarding schools. I'm a committed. I went to boarding school at the age of 8. Interestingly, I'm not sure that I always feel that was necessarily the right choice for me. I'm quite a big fan of I often say to people, it's not whether to board, but when. The reality is we want our children to kind of fledge and fly the nest. But that journey is different for individuals. What I think is exciting, whether that's 8 or 11 or 13 or possibly even just for the sixth form, is actually really being able to be a part of a boarding culture and community, being able to be a part of all of that development of independence. And that's really exciting. Getting to know the children particularly in a boarding community, whether they're boarding pupils or day pupils, but in that wider sense, where actually, therefore, you really get to understand who children are, to see and feel a part of their development is really exciting. And being a part of a community of staff, many of whom live on site, and therefore being able to run relationships that similarly can actually just be a little bit deeper, which then help you have a more impactful relationship in terms of what you're achieving in the school. I think is all quite exciting. So I think the boarding piece is something that I'm sort of most looking forward to. I mean, clearly my family's very excited about moving to Canford. We've been where we've been for 10 years. It feels like the right time for change. It's not undaunting, but actually that's okay. Change is good, and taking the opportunity to see things differently and to have different experiences. That's all a part of life's rich pageant, I think. So that piece we're also really excited about.
Let's look back a little bit and
Okay.
just a little sense of how your career has unfolded and what's brought you to where we are now, sitting here.
So I went to a village school first up, and then I moved to Windlesham House Prep School in Sussex as a full boarder. I'm an army brat, so we all went to boarding schools at 8. Actually, different schools. So my older sister went to Hanford, had a brother at Sandroyd, and then my brother and I were both at Windlesham for prep school. And then my sister moved to Benenden, my brother moved to Tunbridge. I have another brother who moved to Bryanston, and I went to Winchester. So we had a full spectrum of schools, boarding very much a part of them, but different identities, really an important part of that journey. And I suppose that informed my view very much that independent schooling is heavily about choice. That's a big part of what you're doing, is you get to choose in the first instance where it is that speaks into your values. And as a teacher, that's as true as it is as a parent. So it means that I've really enjoyed being able to find schools that really chime with my values and the things that I think are important, I guess. I went from Winchester to Durham. I read English and philosophy, and then trained as a teacher at the University of Bristol, and then did a series of different things. So I've been a head of department, head of English, a housemaster, both in boarding and day context, a deputy head, and then I was a head unusually in some ways, but I was a head in a prep school when my kids were very little. That was actually a very exciting stage to be a head in a prep school, partly, I guess, because my kids were little, so I was really engaged in that. I learnt a lot at that stage, and then I went on as a head internationally at Hillcrest International in Kenya, and then to Moncton, and then in the last few years, during COVID actually, I undertook an MBA in educational leadership at UCL. So I suppose it speaks into the sort of lifelong learning. I really relish that ongoing opportunity to learn and engage. So sort of learning has played a really big part in my life. Boarding and community has played a really big part in my life, and all those things, I suppose, are the things that really draw me to Canford, where I see a community that's excited about learning, that's excited about intellect, that children that really want to do well and to challenge themselves, and are really energetic and enthusiastic about their learning, but also about the community in which they live and a part of how that works. So that's been really exciting. I think one of the more recent parts of my sort of evolution is beginning to think more, as we've seen, I suppose, a questioning in the narrative in the country around what's the purpose of independent schools. Partly from a parental perspective, choice, but from a national perspective, it's really caused me to challenge myself and ask that question. I suppose there are two things. One is the partnership piece, and in the Bath area we've put together a partnership of all the Bath schools, independent and state, and that's beginning to yield some really exciting work. And again, one of the things that drew me to Canford was the partnership with Bourne Academy and what's happening there and how you can have impact in that space, which I think is really exciting. It seems to me, and I sat down with Angela Rayner a few years ago. We were supposed to be having coffee, and she began by saying, by the time we finished coffee, you'll know that you want to work in one of my state schools. And I said, by the time we finished lunch, you'll know why you don't want me to. And we did have lunch. And by the time we finished lunch, she did sort of say, I kind of see what you're getting at. And my pitch to her, and my observation was, independent schools are by their nature organisations in which you have communities that have very high trust in the institution, and that makes it an ideal space for innovation, because people are ready and engaged in the idea that you might try new, interesting, innovative things. And inevitably in educational settings where there is perhaps less choice about who is in them, that's a harder space. So very much sort of my philosophy formed around independent schools as crucibles of innovation, spaces where you can try new things and engage with children and parents and staff, all of whom are really bought into the values and ethos of the institution, and then be able to evaluate the things that have really worked and look to roll them out more broadly. And so part of what I'm excited about in the Bourne Academy partnership is being able to look at, okay, great, so what's the great stuff that we're trialling that we haven't even thought about yet at Canford, and then what are the wider ramifications for that? How can we make sure that has a purpose beyond just enhancing what we're doing here at Canford?
Yeah, and that chimes very definitely. I mean, that sense that learning is something that is lifelong. Plato's view that learning is and education is not something it's just encapsulated in an institution or four walls of something. And it's something that is constantly developing and evolving. I think with the innovation sort of side of things as well, I totally agree with that. And the Bourne link is a wonderful thing, as indeed is that sort of broader, very extensive community partnership program that we have here. It's an integral part of what we do. I was asked by our new MP, Vicky Slade, whether we were actually going to be continuing with that partnership work and the support for pupils coming to Canford, and my response to that was it's part of what we do, and it benefits everybody, and that is the way it will continue. Just with that, I mean, you obviously worked in Kenya, and obviously the sense of partnership sort of locally and regionally, nationally, and so on, very important. But what's your thinking around building the sort of connectivity globally as well? Because obviously, as we see currently, it is everything is interconnected, and how potentially might you see sort of growing the global links? Yeah, we have a few things going, but what's your thinking behind that international side of things?
I mean, I think it's hugely important. I think in the same way as largely our generation perhaps have worked largely in the UK, and some may go and do short stints. Certainly for me, I've moved abroad 3 times. Every time I moved abroad, somebody said to me, that'll be the end of your career. That isn't the world that our children are growing up in. Actually, the sense that going and doing something in other parts of the world, knowing and understanding other cultures, other people, other places, is actually increasingly, I think, an expectation and enhancement of something that people are doing. So I'm a real internationalist in that sense. I really believe in the value of both the international community of pupils at Canford, but also how much, and I love a lot of the work, and I've only begun to get my head around it, of some of the sort of trips that are going on, the way that we select pupils for trips, but also the places we send them to, and that sense that actually, ridiculous though it may sound and obvious, the world is a huge place, and we want our children to be explorers, to be discoverers in that sense, and then to be able to come back to Canford and share those experiences. And the more we have and celebrate an international community and international alumni, and that they may well be British citizens, but people that have experienced the world all over, the richer the whole community will be, I think. So that's an important part of what I think education over the next 10 years is going to be like.
Yeah, I agree. I think it could be a feature where actually trying to raise the profile of teaching as a profession actually is highlighting you've got a set of skills which are transferable all over the world. So as a teacher, you can go and work globally. Something I think that perhaps is undersold as a value of that, even if it means they might leave here for a little while. You're still training teachers, developing them, and then they're coming back. But that global skill set, very, very important, I think. Just as we kind of pull to a close, I guess, this is a little bit like one of those quiz shows, isn't it? Sort of, if you had to think of 3 words to describe yourself, what would they be?
I'm quite fond of the What 3 Words app. I ran a whole prize giving around what 3 words and what 3 words are blended. So it's a question I'm familiar with asking. I'm not as familiar with having to answer it.
Yeah.
What would I say? I suppose I'd say creative, collaborative, compassionate, but allowing for passionate to play out of that. So it's sort of 3.5 words, if that's allowed.
Brilliant, yeah, and I love the alliteration there as well. Always good. It flows nicely, doesn't it?
That's the English teacher in me. I
That's
live
it.
in metaphor and alliteration. You can't take the English teacher out of the English teacher.
Absolutely. Just to finish, Chris, if you had a message for the Canford community, what do you think that might be?
I mean, look, I think it's a message of continuity. I'm excited about getting to know the Canford community across the piece. I'm a people person. I'm interested in the people, whether that's the pupils or the staff or the governors, all those people involved on site, but also the alumni. I've taken some time in the last few months to go and see John Lever and Martin Marriott, your and my predecessors, and hear what they feel about Canford. And so I'm just looking forward to getting to know everybody, really. And so I suppose if I was delivering a message, it would be, come and say hi. Forgive the fact that I may not immediately know who you are, but please do come and say hi and place yourself, because I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody and understanding what Canford means to them, so that we can help it mean all the more all of those things to the next generation of Canfordians.